Kogi politics. Well, Phrank Shuaibu joins us now. He is the media aide to Jibrin Issa Echocho, who, by the way, is a member of the People's Democratic Party.
Very well, not just a member, a card-carrying member,
Okay.
but authentic and legitimate candidate of the PDP.
Thank you for coming on this morning, then. We've heard people say, well, elections were conducted to replace the outgoing governor. And so if that was legitimately done, why shouldn't Captain Wada take office after this Supreme Court verdict?
You know, their case in the first place reminds me of Jaguar and Husseini, of a comedy series on NTA. Because as far as we're concerned, it's about illegitimacy. First, there was even a contempt of court by the outgone governor Ibrahim Idris. After the Supreme Court judgment, he superintended over who takes over from him. And he was the one who gave instructions to the president of the Customary Court of Appeal to swear in Wada. At that time, it was contempt of court because he was an ordinary citizen. He was no longer a governor. So the appeal court president in the first, that was why when I was listening to the young man who just left the studio, I laughed. Because even a layman, my grandmother in the village, know that it's elementary law that at the moment the Supreme Court gave the judgment, Ibrahim Idris automatically became an ordinary citizen. So if an ordinary citizen is transmitting an order to a man who is supposed to be lettered, to a man who is supposed to respect and coordinate the Constitution, or the use of the Constitution, to now destroy the tenets of the letters of the Constitution is unfortunate.
So what else is wrong with the swearing in?
In the first place, Ibrahim Idris at that time was an ordinary citizen. So in the first place, it was contempt of the judgment of the Supreme Court to have instructed the appeal court president, because the appeal court president did not derive any order from anybody. There's a line of communication. The chief judge of the state is the head of the judiciary arm of government, just as the chief justice of Nigeria. So that is what they have forgotten. Yes, there are names. There are those who should swear in a governor, the chief judge, the grand cadi, the president customary court of appeal. But there is a head of the judiciary arm in any government, and that is to prevent anarchy. So when he said there was going to be a vacuum, it's unfortunate. They wouldn't have been a vacuum. An election that is not known to law, well, that was never a party to that election. Yomi Awoni, his deputy, were never parties to that to the case in court from the High Court. People have forgotten that this case started from the Federal High Court. From the Federal High Court, it moved on to the Appeal Court. From the Appeal Court, it moved on to the Supreme Court. So the judgment of the Supreme Court did not start overnight. At the time the election in Kogi, they said election, which as far as we're concerned, we don't even recognize. I don't even bother myself to discuss it, because as far as I'm concerned, if discussing is the height of pedestrianism and jejuness.
What is the
reason is that, let me tell you, I'll tell you something very classical and important here. At the time these cases were in court, Wada was not even a party to any of these cases, from the High Court to the Appeal Court and the Supreme Court. INEC, you know, this same INEC, is unfortunate that Jega has gone this way. This same INEC were the ones, the Independent National Electoral Commission were the ones who went on appeal after they lost the case at the Federal High Court. Ibrahim Idris, the governor of Kogi, is the one that has put this nation in this. The former governor of Kogi is the one that put this nation in the mess today, because in his desperation to cling on to power after 8 years in government. You remember I served in his cabinet. I was his media advisor. I know him so well. He wanted to remain in office. He went to court. Elections were supposed to have been conducted on the 26th of April. From there, the INEC lost the case at the Federal High Court. There was tenure elongation granted them, quote and off quote. Then INEC went to the Appeal Court. The court still held that, his tenure should expire in 2012. Now, during the pendency and life of the suit, that is why I consider the submissions of my colleague who just left here as very unfortunate.
Why?
During the life and pendency of the suit, in fact, all the hearing at the Supreme Court was completed on the 17th of November, 2011.
Okay, so all that time,
yes,
that it started from the Federal High Court,
yes,
are you saying it has to be taken into cognizance when it terminated at the Supreme Court and as such?
That is what that is the position of the law, even to a common man. The question is this: at the time there was a pendency of the suit, and that's why I want to commend the Ekiti State governor, for instance. They were meant to conduct local government elections. The State High Court gave a judgment that, look, some members of the State Electoral Commission are members of your political party, and as such you have to suspend this election. There was a court order, and the elections have been suspended. In this material instance, there was a pendency of a suit at the Supreme Court. INEC, yes, there was a judgment of the Appeal Court. INEC went to court to appeal that judgment. The suit was alive. It was pending. It had been heard by all the parties, even friends of the court were invited. INEC was aware because they were a party to the suit. And they still went ahead to conduct elections on the 3rd of December. You see, I am not surprised. There is a man who, asked for so much money.
Well, anyway, let's not talk
so
about
we will talk about it. Yes.
We can't, of course.
Yes.
You're media professional, so you should know. We shouldn't talk about the people. Let's look at the issues, and you've been doing fantastically well.
God bless you.
Yes, let's leave the dramatis personae. Now, this whole talk about Kogi elections, we have to go back to the first primaries. We're told your principal Jibril Isa Chocho didn't partake in that particular election.
He didn't partake?
Yes.
In the primary election in January?
He agreed when he lost to Governor Wada that there was no case for him.
No, you see, I detest...
No, I'm coming. Okay, I'm sure you must have heard that as a result of the Supreme Court ruling, that kind of gave bite to your own camp to say, looks like there's some kind of ray of hope for us to latch on to this particular ruling.
Suleiman, thank you very much. I know that some people have come here to trade on lies and fiction, especially in their desperation. Before now, people are not aware, and I'm sure this station should be aware, that before now, in fact, we have had several cases. As I speak with you, before the elections, we were at the Federal High Court. The case to determine who the authentic candidate of the PDP was. And the case is still at the Federal High Court.
Still alive?
But not just alive and kicking. And will be determined in a matter of days by the grace of God. The issue is this. You see, these people like trading on lies and fiction in their desperation. The same way they were desperate to swear in Wada. This desperation originated from my former principal and my former boss. I've said it before. I think the man should be under a spell. If he were not under a spell, there was no basis to have started this. If the cases pass through this, let me ask you a question, Suleiman. If you come from a process from the High Court to the Appeal Court to the Supreme Court, are you saying that even the judgment of the Supreme Court is a mere academic exercise?
What do you think?
What happens to all the parties involved in the suit that even went to court? Are we saying that justice delayed is justice denied? The answer is no. The answer is simple. It's a simple no. We cannot sit down. The Supreme Court of the Federal Republic of Nigeria is not Supreme Court of PDP.
Okay.
PDP cannot wake up. There are some characters. When I mean PDP, I'm not just talking about PDP because we are members of the party. There are some characters within the PDP leadership that if you put money even on cops, they will pick it. And when they collect this money, they manipulate everything. And they have boasted in some quarters that as far as they are concerned, the Supreme Court or no Supreme Court, no court in the land can stop them from doing what they are doing. And we want to say that.
But we know the courts are the final.
You see, when we want to say, the Supreme Court is the Supreme Court of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. And we know that they will live up to their responsibilities. It's not the Supreme Court of PDP, it's the Supreme Court of Nigeria. Okay. Whether there was a consequential order or not, the question is, there were parties to this suit that originated from the Federal High Court through the Appeal Court to the Supreme Court. Now there is a judgment. So what happens to the party? I'll give you a classical example. Oh, you are married to Malkwe and she sues for a divorce. Well, I'll tell your wife not to be angry.
No, academic purpose.
For academic purpose, let me use that as a classical illustration. Now, assuming you go to court for a divorce, the Federal Court rules that no, you cannot divorce her on social grounds. You go on to appeal. They say no, you cannot. And you got the judgment at the Supreme Court. Do you now say, oh, you still remain married to Malkwe because the Appeal Court ruled some time ago that in fact this marriage will only be terminated by 2030? It's disgustingly imbecilic. They are very jejune arguments that they make someone to throw.
I do not exactly understand how that analogy fits into the situation.
It does.
Presently,
yes.
But if you look at what they have said so far, they have made it very clear that there was no consequential order from that particular ruling.
Yes. So anybody can interpret the judgment of the Supreme Court, including Jega or Wada. Wada went. Let me tell you something. There's something you are not aware.
I want to get something. What exactly is your grouse here?
Not a grouse. We are in court. The case is before a competent court of law. There was a judgment, and the normal thing for any sane person to do is to approach the courts and not to provide. Let me tell you, there's something that was not reported in the media, except few newspapers. The vice president of Nigeria, when President Jonathan was in Addis Ababa for the AU conference, summoned the acting governor to the presidential villa. Grovelled, begged, When the man refused that he should hand over to Wada, that it was a family affair. That they know that yes, constitutionally, it is his duty to assume office as acting governor.
That was the speaker.
The vice president of Nigeria.
No, who? That was the.
First they begged the speaker who was the acting governor, who is the acting governor as far as we are concerned, that is not known to law. They begged him when he refused. They Grover when he refused. They now intimidated and harassed him. And on the second day, the vice president, the sitting vice president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, stand to be corrected, gave an order where mobile policemen, over 200 mobile policemen, were deployed to Kogi State to escort a Wada into Kogi State government house. And the question is this: here is a man in his domain where we have Boko Haram killing everybody, and you will bring over 200 mobile policemen and military men to Kogi State, even when we are not in the state of anarchy or war, then there is a problem.
Well, if you say that you're in court, why are you in a hurry?
In a hurry to do what? We are only here to tell the world, to expose the crass irresponsibility being exhibited by the leadership of PDP as to pretending and harassing the Chief Justice of Nigeria as well as the Supreme Court.
Okay, what are your prayers in court? What are you praying the court to grant?
Simple prayers. Alhaji Jibril Iseto is candidate of People's Democratic Party. He was duly nominated on the 9th of January to participate in the election on the 26th of April. Ibrahim Idris went to court. The election was postponed. INEC went on appeal to the appeal court. The election was still postponed because judgment was given in favor of Ibrahim Idris. And finally, the Supreme Court has given a verdict that, look, INEC was right. You see, these are things they don't know. INEC was right to have put up a notice for election to have held on the 26th of April 2011. So now that we have won, now that the case has been won for the people of not just Kogi State of Nigeria, but for the people of Nigeria, all we need to do is for the letters of this judgment to be obeyed by all and sundry.
Okay, so
by conducting fresh elections or whichever way, they should legitimately. Any sane society, they should legitimately approach the courts. Now that, we conducted one illegal election, but there is no basis for it. Why should you do that? There was a pendency of a suit in court.
Okay.
INEC went ahead to conduct an election. So it was a jamboree. They were only wasting their money. That's why I referred you to what I call the Jaguar and Husseini show on comedy series.
Assuming your prayer in court is granted.
Not assuming.
Hypothetically. No, I'm being hypothetical. I'm not a party member.
Yeah.
So, hypothetically, if that were the case, if it were granted.
Yes.
So, what happens? You now go for the elections and you expect INEC to conduct elections on April 16 with Jibril Nisa Ochecho being the candidate of the PDP?
There is no gainsaying about this thing. A case started from somewhere. These are candidates legitimate. In fact, Abubakar Audu, if the election is going to hold very soon, Abubakar Audu will not even be candidate of ACN. He was candidate of AMPP. These are all parties to the suit. You cannot benefit from where you cannot reap where you did not sow. Wada is not known to law. It does not even exist. As far as we are concerned, Kogi is being governed by the acting governor. Anything they are doing, as far as we are concerned, is an aberration. So
you believe that you have to be a party to a suit to be able to benefit from that particular judgment?
As at the time these suits originated, until when it terminated at the Supreme Court, Wada was not known to law.
I'm not talking about Wada now. I'm talking about any judgment. Are you saying that somebody must be a party to a suit?
Obviously, somebody went to court. Somebody's rights were being trampled upon. The election was supposed to hold in Kogi at that time. Now you rush to court, so no, this election cannot hold because my tenure has not expired. And the case went on to the appeal court and the Supreme Court. Now that judgment has been given at the Supreme Court, who should benefit from it? From your stooge? Your in-law? Okay, your son-in-law that you are prepared to cover your tracks? Let
us assume now that Wada was the candidate who emerged at that point in time, before the April election.
Yes.
Would you have any problem if INEC had gone ahead to conduct?
We would still have problems because that position will be challenged will be overturned by any legitimate court in the land. The reason is simple. Other political parties will go to court. Now, at the time he was elected, even if he were the candidate in January, at the time the election was conducted, it was conducted after the tenure of Ibrahim Idris.
Okay.
You understand? So, if all the parties that were validly nominated in January, did not participate in that election, it becomes a nullity.
When is the case coming up?
Obviously, we are in court on the 9th of February, by the grace of God. At the appeal court this time, sir. At the appeal court. So, you see, it's a shame that an INEC under Jega is doing what they are doing. It's unfortunate Mr. President is watching helplessly.
That's why we have
people pretending.
That's why we have
over illegality, and it's unfortunate.
Well, we have the courts, so expect what you say. You're there now, so who knows? We'll wait and see what eventually pans out. But if it's at the appeal court, does it mean, or do we expect that it may go all the way to the Supreme Court?
It may. You see, this is a delay tactics by the PDP. They have a penchant for disobedience of
which you remember.
We are. You see, that is why the next convention on March 24. By the grace of God, we throw out so many of these characters.
Okay.
Well, who believe that they have suffered enough in the civil service, they didn't make 1 naira, they now get to the PDP, they see it as they need to amass wealth. In fact, billions of our collective patrimony under Ibrahim Idris went to the PDP.